Awesome. And with that, my name is Jesse Hildebrand, and welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. It has been a crazy day for us here. We have had Plastiki, so a plastic ship that sailed across the ocean. We've been joined by Stuart McPherson and the Darwin 200 team in England with a special message from Jane Goodall. And we just wrapped up with Joe Cutler on the Agui River in Gabon. It is our this is our fourth of 7 programs today. Crazy day to kick off the week. And I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you from joining in at home, live on camera, as we continue to highlight scientists, explorers, and conservationists around the globe. So today I'm particularly excited because we are joined back again at the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences. So we've done 20+ programs with them over the last few years, and they are New England's premier avian rehabilitation center. They work through education, research, public perception, rescuing, rehabilitating, and re-releasing injured wildlife. And we always love highlighting their amazing animals. We are joined live today there by educator Kim Holland, who is going to walk us through some of their coolest creatures, and then we'll have a chance to ask all sorts of questions about our feathered friends. So Kim, thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Hi everyone, my name is Kim. I'm an environmental educator here at VINS. We're located in Quechee, Vermont, and we've been a part of this community of Quechee and Woodstock for 48 years. So we've been around for quite some time. And I'm sure you guys are wondering, this here is our eastern screech owl, and we call him Miami. So one of the fun things about our center here he goes, is that we call our animals where they were last wild. So he is in fact from Miami, Florida, which is pretty fun. And so for today, I just kind of want to talk with you guys about owls. Raptors are pretty cool animals. A lot of times people think raptors are just birds of prey, but in fact, if you think about it, there's a lot of birds of prey that aren't necessarily raptors. One of my favorite examples is penguins. A lot of times people don't think penguins are birds of prey, but they absolutely are. Penguins are eating fish, fish are alive, and so that would technically be a bird of prey. But I want to kind of show off Miami here of being a bird of prey that's a raptor. So they have all about 3 characteristics that make raptors a raptor. So the first are those eyes. I don't know if Miami will look towards you guys, but he does have some pretty big eyeballs. They take up about 1/3 of his skull. If I were an owl, my eyes would be as big as my fist, which is pretty funny. And so that's one of the characteristics of being a raptor. You have forward-facing eyes. And then the other one is that curved beak. So right now, Miami's doing a great job showcasing it, but you can also see it with the peregrine falcon on this side of me and the red-tailed hawk over in that picture. They all have curved beaks. And the last one are those talons. Now he's really small, but he still has some pretty sharp toes there. I do have to wear a glove because he would still scratch my skin quite easily. That is the best way that raptors are getting their prey. They grab them with their feet while other birds of prey use their beak. So that's a really easy way to tell the difference between raptors and other birds of prey. But for today, I could talk on and on and on about all the raptors, but I do want to focus on owls. So for the eastern screech owl, he is found throughout the eastern coast in North America. So you'll find them all the way down in Miami, Florida. That's the southernest tip of North America, and all the way up through most of Canada until you start to get into kind of the really cold tundra. But these guys, they need trees. And without trees, we'll see their population start to fall down. And one of the fun things about being an educator is that I can kind of pick and pull the fun things I want to share. And one of my favorite things to talk about is how the environment is shaping animals to how we see them today. So the eastern screech owl, if you look at his stomach here, that belly, is very striped. It looks actually surprisingly like bark of a tree. Now these guys, they're shaped by their environment because they are predators, but they are also prey for bigger birds. Even eggs will be prey for raccoons and other mammals that are going to be coming to a tree, maybe a fisher. And so being a small bird, they've been shaped to their environment to be able to fit into those ecological niches, the little bits of the environment that is perfectly suited for these guys. So the eastern screech owl is small because their prey is small. These guys are eating a big variety of stuff, and so they're going to be eating anything from insects like crickets or beetles to maybe some small frogs and toads for those amphibians, and they'll even eat small birds and tons of small rodents. And they have a really cool way of hunting, and being an animal in their environment, they are using their ears to hunt. Owls are usually nocturnal. Of course, there are some exceptions, as with all rules of nature, but these guys are pretty nocturnal. But they will come out during the day if food is available. And so that's why having Miami out right now at 12 p.m. Vermont time, he's actually pretty comfortable being out and about right now. He knows that food is happening during this time, and so he's eager to stay awake and get that food. But out in the wild, they would mostly be in trees during the daytime. And that's kind of the biggest part of being an eastern screech owl. They are cavity nesters. Now, being such a small size is another way that they've been shaped by their environment. And being a small size means that you can fit in small things. And if you guys have ever seen a woodpecker making a hole in a tree, they're actually creating a home for another animal. And that's exactly how the eastern screech owls are finding their places to live. They're finding the holes in the trees, they're naturally occurring, or were helped out by those woodpeckers, and they happen to be in dead trees. And now that's really important, and that kind of comes into Miami's own backstory. These guys are cavity nesters and in dead trees, and if a dead tree happens to be near humans, we tend to cut it down. And that's okay as long as you can guarantee that no animal is using that dead tree as a home. But unfortunately, that's sometimes really hard. These guys are really small. He's only weighing as much as a Snickers bar or a bar of butter. And so that's really small for him and really hard to see. In fact, you probably have an eastern screech owl in your backyard if you are living along the East Coast or in wooded areas. And these guys are also found in wooded areas through North America until you hit the Rockies. And so it's really hard to see them even though they may be in your own backyard, which is why we promote that if you want to cut down a dead tree, maybe it's too close to your garage or your home, your cars, to actually just wait a little bit. There's a ton of cool environments for these birds, but we also have to learn how to coexist with these birds. And if you just wait until end of the fall, kind of right now into November, it's the perfect time to cut down dead trees. A lot of animals that use those trees for homes will have moved out, and they'll be able to not be injured if you cut down the tree. Now you may have put together, this is exactly Miami's backstory. So down in Miami, Florida, when he was a little nestling, so still in his nest 3 years ago, he was in a tree that had been cut down. Now, when this family cut down their tree, they didn't know there were screech owls in it, as that's super common. And when they cut the tree down, a family of screech owls came tumbling out. Miami's siblings, I think he had about 4 of them, they did okay. They were able to be re-released into the wilds of Miami, but this little guy, he had an injury that prevents him from being released. If he stares at the camera a little bit, you'll notice that this eye here has no reaction. And in fact, it actually blinks at a really strange rate. It's kind of random. But if I have my hand come over here, hello, he can see on that side. And so he has some sort of blindness in that right eye and likely some neurological damage from getting hit in the head during that fall. So if he were to go back out into the wild, it usually happens that they wouldn't survive. He would be eaten really quickly, or he would starve because he wouldn't be able to find his own food. Now here at VINS, we like to rehabilitate wild birds as much as possible. But part of that means that they may not make it. They may die of their injuries because birds are really great at hiding the fact that they're injured. They're fantastic at pretending everything is fine because the wild world means that if you are injured, you're going to get eaten pretty fast. And I'm sure you guys wouldn't want to be eaten, neither do wildlife, and so they're perfect at being able to hide their injuries. Unfortunately, they hide them from people, and even if we want to help them, those animals simply don't know. And so when they are looking injured, that means that that animal is kind of the last legs of their ability to survive, and it's really important to get those birds to a rehabber like us. But at the same time, we recognize that it's really hard for birds to overcome those injuries. Anything from eye damage to a wing injury in particular, feet injuries, they can be detrimental. And so either that will lead to possibly euthanasia of the animal, or if they seem to be doing okay around people, we're going to try to place them in a facility where they can be ambassadors. Because as much as fun and cool as this guy is, you probably would never have seen this species out in the wild. And as a way, he is fulfilling his role in his ecosystem by being an ambassador and educator so that you guys can learn about all the wild eastern screech owls and ways that you can help. And so one of the best ways you guys can help is that as understanding how these species has their natural history, as they're cavity nesters, they like to be hidden in trees, they eat animals that live along trees in the forest litter, you can actually help create that environment. So if you have a backyard, you can actually get a nesting box, which is really cool. It is just simple wood, and there's usually a small hole cut out in it, and it will promote birds just like this eastern screech owl to move in. Of course, you have to watch out, make sure that squirrels don't take in that box, but the way it's designed, it does really well at promoting for raptors to move in. And the proper size means you're going to get a bird just like an eastern screech owl, and they're going to help you take care of your insect populations, your small rodent populations, and you're going to be helping them have more habitats. As people like to expand, we tend to cut down forests, we tend to expand outward and make more subdivisions. And these guys do surprisingly well in subdivisions as long as they have a place to nest. And so that's a really easy way to help owls just like Miami here. And it's a really easy way to just add it to your property. And all you have to do is clean out the junk that the baby owls have accumulated. They'll regurgitate pellets, and that has little animal bones in it and fur that they couldn't digest. And that's going to be spewed all over the ground of the nesting box. And so you just have to dump it out at the end of the fall. And that will promote those owls to come back in the next mating season and breeding season and use that nesting box again. And it's really cool to watch baby owls grow up. So that's a little bit about Miami, how you guys can help owls just like him. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and get our second owl. But I'm going to be checking out this comment section, so if you guys have any questions about Miami right now, go ahead and submit those in there while I go get our next bird.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kim. Well, we're so excited to meet our next bird and say bye to Miami. Yeah, so we've got groups joining in on YouTube. If you're a teacher joining in on YouTube, we'd love to see your questions there as well for the end of the broadcast, the middle, whatever works for you. Our live families, live teachers, welcome in Myer Secondary School and our two live families in Maryland and Ontario. Would love to hear your questions in a minute as well. We'll dive in with our second owl and then do a great Q&A for about 20 minutes at the end. Awesome, guys. All right, stay tuned with Kim, and then I'll bring this up too again if you didn't see it. If you get a chance at the end of the broadcast, vinsweb.org, you can learn all about the Vermont Institute of Natural Sciences. It's an amazing organization. We've done, again, like 20 broadcasts with them. You can check all of those out on our YouTube channel. We encourage you to dive in, and if you want a nice compliment to this as well, we're doing a series of programs over the next few weeks with the Lucky Peak Research Station, also some really, really top-notch stuff. Looks like Kim's back, so we'll turn it back over to her. Thanks, Kim, and let's meet our new friend.
Well, hello, everyone, again. I kind of shifted gears here and went from a really small owl to quite a big one. So this here is a barred owl. We spell that B-A-R-R-E-D. I don't know what she's looking at right now. Probably something on the ground. And this is actually the most common owl here in New England. They do fantastic at being in really forested areas. They love to be in the deep, mature growth forests. And one of the fun things about Vermont in particular is that we have had a complete shift in land management. And that means that when the colonists came in about the 1700s, they cut down a lot of the forest and made it into pasture lands. They wanted to bring back some bits of England and European countryside, and to do that, they needed open areas. But that meant that they were destroying a lot of habitat for owls, just like Heartland here and the other barred owls. And so after a while, they realized that tearing down all the forest was making the land really fragile, and they started having issues with farming, and they couldn't export any more lumber by the 1800s. And that was a huge proponent of the trade that was happening in Vermont at the time. And so by the late 1800s or into the 1900s, there's a huge push throughout North America to change our land and to promote the natural occurring ecosystems. And that happens to be woodlands. And so in about 1870s, we had cleared 75% of our forest in the States. By the 1940s, that number had started to flip. And now we have almost all the forest recovered with just enough land for agriculture use to keep that industry flowing. And doing that has helped this owl come back to the woods here. And they actually have a really cool call. This owl doesn't usually make any noise. Her injury is a mental one, and I'll get into that just a little bit. But they have a call that we like to use the words, "Who cooks for you, who cooks for you all." And so if I'm going to imitate it very poorly, it sounds something like, and there's a ton of different variations, but a lot of folks here in New England know that call. They may have seen those owls making the call, but they definitely recognize that as kind of a staple of the New England forest, which is really cool. And so for the barred owl, they are exploring these forests, and they are pretty much just sitting on a tree waiting for their prey to come on down. They're primarily eating a lot of rodents, but they won't hesitate to dabble in other things. They'll eat small birds, they'll eat amphibians and reptiles, and there's actually a really cool video of a barred owl fishing. They're in a small, shallow pool of sorts, and they are stomping around in the water, and then they're using their feet to grab whatever is going on under the water that we can't see in the video, but it's really cool. They'll eat fish and crayfish, and they really don't shy away from a lot of things. Now, just as our eastern screech owl was a product of their environment, so is the barred owl. And they're also impacted by what we do as people. Now, of course, they're being impacted through the forest, and that's why you also see that same camouflage on Heartland here with that barring on her chest. She blends in very well with trees, just as the eastern screech owl did. They also are a relatively big bird. Females of all raptors are bigger than males. And whereas Miami was about a quarter pound, Heartland here is about 2 to 3 pounds, which is actually light for any animal. Being a bird, they have bones that have a lot of air pockets in them. We like to say they're hollow, but they kind of look like a hard sponge or Swiss cheese. And that allows their bones to be super light, and that allows birds to then have the ability to fly. But if I were to be holding a mammal that's the size of Heartland, I would be holding about an 8-pound mammal. That's just a way to really get a better idea of how impressive birds are in general and their ability to fly. Now, one of the best things you guys can do to help a barred owl, just like Heartland, is to reduce your use of rodenticide. And that's kind of a weird one, but I'll break it down for you guys. So rodenticide is rat or mouse poison, and we usually like to get rid of rodents because they're carriers of disease. But these guys are eating quite a lot of rodents. A family of barred owls can eat upwards of 10,000 rodents in a year. And so if we start to poison the rodents that are still around, it only takes about 3 poisoned mice for an owl the size of Heartland to then get poisoned herself. So poison accumulates in the body of a predator, and so they just have to eat a few mice to then be poisoned through that toxin that was originally for the mice and small rodents. So one of the best ways you can help these guys is to reduce your use of those chemicals, to allow them to be your free rodent control, and you can also build large nesting boxes to promote these guys to live in your neighborhood, just like the eastern screech owl. But it is important to note that the barred owl may eat the eastern screech owl, so you don't want to have both nesting boxes nearby. All right, so I think my time is about up. So I'm happy to move on to the Q&A while Heartland is still out here for you guys to see.
Fantastic. What a beautiful animal. Thank you so much, Kim and Diane in Miami. So let's dive into questions, guys. We have our 3 live groups. I'm going to come to you all one by one. Ms. Ross's class, Mr. Murray's class, anyone else joining on YouTube, please share your questions. We'd love to dive in. What I'll do is I'll start with a really easy question from Ms. Ross's group, which is, what does an owl eat? So you've been feeding a few things throughout the broadcast. Is there anything specific that all owls eat? Is there something that you can share with us on owl in general?
Yeah, so as being an owl, they are obligate carnivores, and that means that they can only eat meats. That's all that their digestive system can handle. In fact, if you tried to give Heartland here a salad, maybe some spinach, she would probably pick it up to investigate it. Owls in particular have really bad eyesight, and they're actually blind within 6 inches of their face. And so they're using bristles or whiskers along their beak there. It's kind of those, see right there, those fine feathers that stick straight out. And she's closing her eyes just in case the prey that I'm feeding has speech. She doesn't want to get impacted by the claws of that prey, but she closes her eyes to protect them, and then she's using those bristles to feel for the food. And so understanding that, they need to be able to eat things that are relatively large, just so that it's easier for them to find that food. And so if she were trying to eat a salad, she would probably use her bristles to figure out what it is, realize that it's a leaf, and wouldn't even try to eat it.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks, Kim. I love how the owls are behaving so well today. It's live animal interactions. You can literally have anything happen. So this is amazing. Our friends today have been awesome. All right, let's go to Niagara Falls. This is Cardamone Paveller's class. If you guys want to come into the broadcast, just demute your mic. Grade 9's there. If you have a question for us, come on up.
Good morning. We have a question for you guys.
Sure.
Go for it. Listen up.
How did they replenish the forest in Vermont?
Oh, sorry. Could you repeat that for us?
How did they replenish the forest in Vermont?
How did they replenish the forest in Vermont?
Oh, okay. Yes. How they replenished the forests in Vermont. It was a huge deal. They had to plant a lot of trees, and there were a few forests left. There were about 25% of the land was still forest, but it was kind of the tippity top of our mountains here. And so they kind of just stopped allowing animals to graze in that area and promoted those forests to expand naturally. Of course, by that point, we had to watch out for invasive species. And one of the things that seems to happen when people move is that we like to bring pieces of home with us. And so the colonists and immigrants would bring in plants that were from Europe. And we have the same conditions as in our environment as Europe does. And so those species kind of took root. They did really, really well. But now we're seeing kind of the collapse of that idea, that a lot of those species are outcompeting the native species that we want to promote. So we want to promote the plants that would have been here originally and try to reduce the numbers of introduced plants.
Awesome. Fantastic. Great question, guys. All right, Neil on YouTube wants to know, why is the owl not flying from your hand? Why aren't you trying to catch the owl all over the room right now?
Yeah, so for our program birds here at our center, we have birds that stay outside in enclosures almost year-round, depending on the species, and they have very limited interaction of closeness to people. They're pretty much more comfortable just being looked at by visitors. And then we have a few birds that are much more comfortable around people because we've trained them. So here we use positive reinforcement training. And that means if I like seeing Heartland here stay on a glove, I'm going to make a clicking sound like this. She's looking now for the food because she knows that that clicking sound means she did something right and food is coming. And so by pairing that together, we can help teach her that specific things are correct. And that's what we want to see. So you kind of start off first by introducing her to the glove. She's going to hear a clicking sound when she looks at the glove and get a treat. She's eventually going to get food directly from the glove by eating a piece that was placed on it. And by doing that, she knows that the glove is a safe and comfortable place to be. Now, to keep her safe, if something were to scare her, she'll want to fly away because that's what birds naturally do. And so here we have some gear. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap it a little bit. Just a little confused what I'm doing. So here, this is called jesses. Figuring out my camera here. These are leather straps that are attached to anklets on her body, and they're always on her. They be separated and just hanging, and they don't impede her ability to fly or walk around. And then we have a leash here with a clip, and then a rope, which then connects to my glove. And so it's a way just to secure the bird to us while we're using her, and while she's being an educator, just because we want to keep the bird safe.
Awesome. How cool is that? I love the attention to the owl whenever you're doing this. It's just amazing. Let's go to Waterloo, the Blanket Spore family. If you have a question, man, come on up.
How old is Miami?
Oh, Miami, our eastern screech owl is 3 years old. Heartland here, our barred owl, is 4.
Fantastic. I'll come back for your other in a minute, man. But you had a great question in the chat, too. So let's go to Kaya joining us in Maryland. If you have a question for us, just demute your mic and come on in.
What are owls' beaks made of?
Ooh, what are owls' beaks made of? I love that question. Their beaks, I'm going to bring her back up close to the camera so you can get a better look. Her beak here, oops, wrong way. There she is. Too close to the camera, back up. Her beak is made out of keratin, and that's the same thing our hair, our eyebrows, our eyelashes, our fingernails are made out of. So right there, I'm helping her remember that sitting here is a really good thing. But I did get too close to the camera for her comfort, and that's why she tried to leave the glove.
You got an illustration of her ear.
Exactly.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. If you have more to say, please do.
Yeah, just about the beaks. Their beaks are continuously growing, and so we, as their caregivers, have to make sure that their beaks don't grow in a weird direction. So they get manicures for their beaks about every 3 months.
Very cool. All right, we're going to take about 5 more questions split between YouTube and our live group. So all our live groups, I will be coming back to you in a second. But I love this question online from Sunil, and it is, how much time does it take to train the owls, Kim?
Oh gosh, it is a full-time, 40-hour-a-week. You could do it for 24 hours a day. And each individual is different. We actually just got a new barn owl. He's just a couple months old, and we've had him for about a month and a half now. And he is now just being introduced to new trainers. So I was just introduced to him after my supervisors got introduced. And he is now just beginning the process of stepping up onto a glove. For owls, they seem to be a little bit hesitant with new things. So we have to be really self-conscious and making sure that we aren't exposing them to too many scary things at once and to allow them time to acclimate to something different. So it's really kind of up in the air.
Nice. Well, thank you, Kim. All right, let's go back to Niagara Falls and Myer. If you guys have another question, come on in and just give me your mic. You're good to go.
Yes. 1 second. Go for it. Go.
Predator goes after owls.
What predator goes after owls is the question.
Ooh, okay, yeah. So a lot of raptors are apex predators. That means they're the top of the food chain. But for some owls, they may be prey for other owls. For the barred owl in particular, their predator is the great horned owl. You'll never see a barred owl nesting in the same area as a great horned owl. The barred owls are trying to stay away from their predator because the great horned owls are looking for the chicks, the young birds, and any possible injured barred owls. And so they're definitely on the lookout for those and also other large raptors. Any raptor that's bigger than the one you're talking about is likely a predator of that smaller bird.
I think in one of our past broadcasts, we had both the birds you brought out today in the same broadcast on screen at the same time, and the way Miami was looking was fantastic. I wish I could find that video.
Yes, yeah, Miami is very well aware of the predators that are around him. But again, if you watch his behavior, make sure he's not too stressed out, and he so far has been doing pretty well.
Awesome, Jim. All right, I'm going to go back to Kaya. I'll take a YouTube question and the core family. I'll come back to you guys in a minute. Kaya, do you have another question for us?
How fast can they fly?
Ooh, that's a fun question too. So for owls, they are a little odd. So a lot of birds fly really, really fast. Owls fly very slow. They'll usually fly at only about 5 miles per hour, and that's for us about a jogging speed. Which is pretty remarkable that they can fly that slowly. It takes a strange amount of physics that I don't want to get into to help those birds achieve such a slow rate. So I'm going to go ahead and put Heartland away real fast. It looks like she's ready to go back, but I will be right back there to answer more questions. Yep, there we go. We're going to put you back.
Perfect. Well, while you're doing that, again, I'll look for that video. I'll send it to all the groups when we're done the broadcast. You've got a few other sessions after this, but I'll try and find you the one where both are on screen at the same time. And I'll find an owl flying video, Kaya. It's really amazing to see them in flight. They're just incredible birds, and they're so unique. Owls are my favorite animals that we've been. So, great question, guys. All right. Further on YouTube, too, again, check out we're doing 4 programs with them in the next couple weeks. Some really cool follow-ups to this talk. Kim, so our question online from Miss Ross is, how many different species of owl are there?
Ooh, I don't have a number for you guys. There are many. It also depends on what continent you're on. In North America, I think we have at least 20 different species. A lot of those species will be the same on other continents. But of course, there are some owls that we don't have here in North America that are in Asia or Russia area, Europe, Africa. So that is a fantastic question, and I implore you guys to do some of your own research to count how many owl species there are.
The world's quickest Google search while you were answering that, it's over 200, and I couldn't find an exact number. Over
I'm going to put that information in my brain.
There you go. Awesome. Well, let's go to the Blanket Sport family. You had a great question and one that a lot of our YouTube groups were asking too, so I'll let you ask it, man, and we'll wrap up with that.
Did you have to study ornithology?
Ooh, my studying. I actually did not. I am learning everything about birds in particular on the job. I actually studied animal behavior, and doing that gave me a really good sense of understanding why animals act the way they do, how to train certain behaviors in those animals, and the concepts in psychology to help me apply those to our birds here. My coworkers have all done a variety of different things. So one coworker studied animal science and then went to graduate school for ornithology. Another coworker, she studied environmental biology, and then she's learned everything through different jobs as well. And my other coworker is, I believe, just biology. And so for a job like this, it's not super specific. You just need to be able to have a 4-year degree in a natural science. So that's anything from chemistry to biology, physics even. For me, it was animal behavior. There's zoology, ornithology, a bunch of different ologies that are about the world around you is really what folks are looking for in this field.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to highlight to all our kids, as we do it in a lot of our programs, that if you're interested in birds, there are so many ways to get involved in an organization like VIMS. If you're interested in space, there's ways to get into that. Like if you can follow your passion for a particular field or a major interest, whatever your specific career focus is, you can probably find a way to get involved in that. So just keep that in mind, follow those passions, and there's lots of different things. I love highlighting that, Kim, so thank you so much for that answer.
Yeah, sure thing.
Before we wrap up, Kim, I want to see, is there one last thing you want to share with us about your role at VIMS, about birds in general, owls that we can take home with us that leave with today?
Unfortunately, you guys cannot take any of our birds home with you, but you can symbolically adopt one of our birds. So it's one of our favorite ways to kind of bring awareness for folks. I know I saw a question over in the comments about where we get our funding. Our center is nonprofit. That means we don't get any funding from outside sources, and we are putting all our money back right into this facility. And that means that all of our funds to run this whole place comes from visitors coming into our center. And so admission price goes right back to us helping take care of these birds, ones that would be euthanized or would die in the wild if they were sent back. And so you can absolutely go to our website and look up adopting a raptor. And usually you will provide an amount of money and then you'll be able to get a private experience with that bird. So kind of like this, but in person, you get to take a photograph of the bird if you would like, and then you also get to see the enclosures in a little bit more in-depth detail. And by doing this, you're helping sponsor that bird and helping us take care of that bird in particular. So we always love when more people do that, but simply coming into our facility does wonders for everything we do here.
Outstanding. Well, check out the site, check out those YouTube pages. I'd really encourage you to go do that, because that sounds like a really fun thing to have that personal experience, especially amidst these sort of weird times. So, Kim, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's lovely to have you, and thanks so much for showing us your amazing animals today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad I could have been a great resource for you guys.
Awesome. Well, bring in our two students to say a bye and thank you as well. Kaya, a Blankenford family, thanks so much.